All right, we ready? All right. Every week. I know. We should be seasoned veterans by now.
Do you think Duncan will sponsor?
All right, here we go. All right, good.
Hey guys, it's Nat and Jess here doing our podcast that we're putting on for you. Anything that you guys might need here in the gym. As a reminder, we're both coaches here at Big Lick CrossFit, and we have a really great episode for you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's favorite topic is food, I would assume. So today we've brought in our friend and Coach Shelly. She's going to be our great resource for today. I'm going to let her introduce herself and kind of describe who she is and why she's an authority on this topic.
Well, not an authority. Definitely not an authority, just somebody who likes to learn. So, yeah, like you said, my name is Shelly. I'm also a coach here. Coming up on, I guess it's coming up on 5 years. Well,
yeah, over 5.
Yeah. And, yeah. So just had my 4th, it'll be 5 later on. Anyway, this spring I went and got my nutrition, precision nutrition L1. We've done one nutrition challenge here, so kind of got my feet wet with that. So by no means am I an expert, not a doctor, none of that stuff, but I just like to learn. Just think it's kind of, selfish reasons too, just how to perform better. Having a background as a runner, I enjoyed doing like half marathons, and then I'd get into like that 8th, 9th mile and to lead a wall, but learned that fuel was a big thing in that. Like I always kind of had the mindset that, I wouldn't eat before because, stomach issues or those kind of things, but figured out the hard way that you have to fuel your body properly.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah. So we know that you coach here at Big Lick CrossFit. Do you also offer nutrition coaching?
Well, yes, we can. Yes, we do offer that. So if you have any one-on-one specific goals, especially coming into the new year, if you've got some new goals for the new year, we'd love to sit down and chat with you. You can just reach out to Tracy and she can get you in touch and we'll go from there.
Awesome. So if you have any nutrition needs, wants, questions, things that you need to get going, like she said, in the new year, you can reach out and get some one-on-one coaching, which that's an awesome service I think that we have here that not everywhere has. So with that being said, let's talk about why that might be something that people should prioritize and why nutrition is important for athletes. So do you have any great points as to why it's important? Or a question that I really want to know is, what are the biggest differences that you see between an athlete who does focus on nutrition and maybe an athlete who does not focus on nutrition?
So obviously I think because we all kind of buy into that CrossFit methodology thing, and CrossFit has sort of a pyramid, and at the bottom of that pyramid is nutrition. So before you even get to like the metabolic conditioning, the gymnastics, the weightlifting, the sports part of CrossFit, of why we do CrossFit, you got to have sort of that nutrition piece. The idea behind CrossFit is that we're on like this sort of continuum, like sickness is over here on one side, and then wellness, and then fitness, and we all kind of want to get from sickness to fitness, and nutrition is our bridge between that. So what we're putting in our bodies to be able to fuel our bodies. So for me, when I see athletes that they've been coming for a while, they're not really making any progress, and they're kind of like, why can't I make progress? Well, let's talk about your bottom of your pyramid, and that kind of opens up sort of that door to be able to figure out, ways they can improve and improving their performance in the gym and in life, right?
So you feel like you can probably see that difference, like pretty obviously, between someone who does and does not look at nutrition.
I mean, I would think so. Like, I know how I feel personally when I come in if I haven't been on my game. And I think, when people come in and they come in, with their big coffees, not looking at your guys, obviously, but, just what, big sugared up coffee. But, so.
There's no sugar in here, girl.
No, it's just
oat milk. There's no sugar.
It's just ice and,
oat milk and caffeine.
So I'm not going to say I am gifted in that and looking at people and knowing, but once you kind of peel back that layer, and you sort of talk to people, get that relationship going with someone, which is, as coaches, is our job, is for me to, kind of figure out what can make you a better person. That's my job as a coach. And I think having that sort of background a little bit in nutrition, that just kind of helps me to be able to be like, hey, let's look at this. What do you think about this? And I think a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Nobody wants to, open up that door. But if your performance in the gym and things are something you really want to work on, that's your first step, or it wouldn't be in the little CrossFit pyramid, right?
Exactly.
It'd be somewhere else.
Yeah. Foundational step.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for someone who maybe nutrition's a new thought for them, something that they haven't even considered, and they're listening to this, what are maybe some signs that they should be looking for that they're like, oh, nutrition is part of the reason that I'm not, you're talking about progressing.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, maybe I'm not eating enough of the right stuff. What are some signs that maybe their nutrition isn't as in check as they might think it is?
So I would just think results, maybe physical results. So you say, I'm gonna walk into a CrossFit gym and I'm just gonna work out that 1 hour a day. And that's the only thing I'm changing, which is great and awesome. And I celebrate that. I'm not knocking that at all. That is an amazing first step. But then you're like, man, I really thought, you're 3 months into it, and you thought, I thought I'd see a difference by now, or feel a different whatever. Okay, now we get to do the fun part. Now we get to be like, okay, we've gotten you into a habit of the exercise piece. So let's tweak a few things and see. And then, then they get to, their intensity gets a little better, and that's where you get to see those results. So I just think it's that neat little...
Yeah. I completely agree. Actually, a personal story, when I first started CrossFit, I was in that mindset, really uneducated, where, you're supposed to eat less to be healthy in a lot of ways and cut a lot out. And I had a coach who was a precision nutrition coach, and I started doing macros with her. And I remember when she first started having me eat, I was thinking, this girl is giving me way too much to eat. Mm-hmm. But I lost body fat, and I actually went up by 30% in all my lifts. And so, but I was going through that same process that you're talking about, where I was like, I've been doing CrossFit for a year now, and I was getting fitter technically, but I was not getting stronger. I was having a really hard time in all of my lifts. So I think that's actually a really great point, is the results on the other side. If you're showing up consistently but not getting results, that there's, a key piece missing.
Yeah. And kind of the same thing for me. I started CrossFit in 2018. I actually weigh the same right now that I weighed when I started CrossFit, but I have flipped my body fat and my skeletal muscle. I've flipped that. So my weight, of course it's gone down, whatever, and up, but right now I weigh the exact same as I did when I started, but I have less body fat and more, so I have changed my fat into muscle.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's a really cool, piece of it.
Yeah, so maybe not just the weight on the scale is the only thing you can look
at.
at.
The number doesn't matter, but it's that I have put on more muscle, which for me is very important.
Would you say?
And my age, my advanced age.
Advanced age. Yeah, I hear that. Would you say you feel better working out?
Absolutely.
What about even with running? You think you feel better running?
Yes. Yeah, because I know how to fuel now.
Yeah.
I feel like before I would go out, I wouldn't hardly eat anything before a half marathon. And then I would, like I said, I would get to the end of it and I just wouldn't have anything left because my body was like, we have used it all, sister. Give us nothing to work with.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
Yeah. I think that's interesting and cool, fueling the machine that is your body, Yeah. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, and just for life too, we all know, even the Bible tells you garbage in equals garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm fueling my body with garbage, that's, what I can expect. How can I expect my body to run on that? Like a car, you can't put junk in a car and expect it to run.
Yeah.
It can run for a little while, but then it's going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
So, when I put the good gas in there, it's going to go for a lot longer. And, I think as I get older, that's just more important to me when I think about, wanting that longevity. And I want to be able to be doing CrossFit, in my 60s. So, which is not that far away.
Sure.
Still in here killing it. Still. Yeah, I think those are some really good points. So obviously, nutrition is important. I think there's no one that's really going to argue that at that point. But what are some tips that you would give people to put that into action if they know that it's they know that it's important, they want to start, but maybe some things they need to start to get the ball rolling. So like things to eat before and after, recovery meals, snacks like that. Like how would you guide them in the first couple steps?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do would be, like, if you are really want to get serious about your nutrition, is going to be to be aware of it. You're going to have a food journal, which is a little sticky for some people, but you're going to have to write down everything that you eat and the amounts of what you eat. So that, like, I could tell you, you need to have a protein shake afterwards, blah, blah, whatever, but if you're having all this other stuff, you know, like, we really need to figure out what you're eating now and how you feel eating that now before we kind of start tweaking and changing things. So, but for me, I work out at like 8:15 or 9:30 in the morning. I have time to have breakfast before I come. But, you know, we have our wolf pack at 5:15, and the few times I've done the 5:15, I typically don't eat before I come, just because I'm not going to get up an hour or two before to make sure, you know, and some of the Wolfpack people or the Assassins may have that down pat, and great, you know, but like that would be a good time to have like a protein shake, something, so you have a little something in you before you work out, but then within an hour to 30 minutes after you work out is when I would have like a good breakfast, your protein, your carbs, a little bit of fat, like everything you would normally have after that. But you don't want to come in here, I would think, like at 4:30 in the afternoon, fasted, not having eaten throughout the day, and expect to be able to perform well,
Yes.
you know.
Absolutely agree.
And you said food journal. There's things like MyFitnessPal, right? There's free
Yes.
versions of that. Is there anything else that you would recommend? That's
My macros.
My macros.
Yeah, I think Macros Plus, I think is the new. It's blue. I know it's blue. That's basically the same thing as MyFitnessPal, and it's worth it. I think it's worth it to pay for MyFitnessPal for maybe a couple of months, just because it breaks down like your fat, your carbs. It like breaks them down for you and tells you which foods are high in this, and so if you're new to it and you don't know, you know, then it's eye-opening to see. I mean, there's nothing more devastating than when you're measuring your food and you measure out 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. That is the most devastating thing in the world. It's like heartbreaking how much is actually into, you know, that little scoop.
But it still can be super useful.
It can be, it's helpful, and that's why I think, you know, like just starting out, like if I give you like macros or whatever to go by, I think macros are important because they break everything down, so you know exactly what you're putting like in your body, how much. A lot of people struggle with getting enough protein, and you know, getting all that in, and it just kind of shows you, you know, and you do end up eating more, which is eye-opening too, because you think, you know, we all think, I think especially as women too, like less is more, carbs are bad, you know, all this kind of, whenever, you know, carbs are in your broccoli, carbs are in, you know, a lot of things. Anyway, I just think tracking your macros are just like, for me, that's just a key to be able to do it. And the first thing you should do when you start doing your food journal is buy a scale.
Food scale. And they're pretty cheap.
And they're, you can get on Amazon all day long. So that can be you know, nutrition can be as hard as you want it to be, or it can be as simple as you want it to be. So.
Yeah, and I don't think these things have to be like enemy, like carb does not have to be enemy as like, you know, God made carbs for us to have fuel. We need that, and our brains need different things, and our muscles need different things. Like, I don't think there's a certain macro that's an enemy necessarily.
No.
I don't know if you had another question for her, but
I have so many questions.
You have so many questions?
I have so many questions. Like, I could keep going on this.
Can we talk about the cheat day thing?
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
I just feel like, because we talked about like cheat days in a diet or cheat meals or whatever. To me, like, if I have like a cheat day, that means, you know, like I'm just blowing it all out of the water every day. When you think about your whole week, like you want to think about your nutrition and your calories like over the span of a week, right? Not necessarily like one day. Because, I mean, we're all going to have days where we didn't get our calories in or we got too many calories in. So think of it kind of like an average, like your toddler, right? So like your toddler maybe is going to eat a peanut butter and jelly 4 days out of the week. But, you know, you kind of think about it over the span of time, what did you get in them? You know, versus this one meal, and if I think I'm gonna have my cheat meal, I'm gonna have my cheeseburger and my French fries and my beer, and then I'm like, oh well, I ate all that. Now I've got to restrict. I've got to get even tighter on my diet, and it just kind of puts you in that little hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Versus if Jess calls me and says, hey, let's go get a cheeseburger. We go out, we get a cheeseburger, we enjoy it, we have fun, and then I just make good choices at my next meal. I don't feel like, oh, I've done something bad. I just make good choices from then on.
Yeah, I mean, what we were kind of talking about, like consistency is what that's called. Like, what are you doing over a long period of time? It's the same thing in what we talk about, like with your workouts. Like, one bad workout isn't going to make or break you. It's what have you done consistently, week in, week out, month in, month out, and that's where you see, if you're in the sick or the well side. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like, don't use the word cheat day, I guess. Or cheat meal.
I mean, it's like you said, I think food is meant to be enjoyed. So much of our, when we gather with people, most of the time we gather with food, right? We enjoy, there's like memories that are made with food. Oh, there's emotions that are tied, food is not just fuel. I'd love to think that it's just fuel, but there's a lot, tied into that. There's habits that are tied in with food. So in the evening, if I've had a really crappy day and I'm going to sit down in front of the TV and I'm going to eat ice cream, well, that becomes a habit for me. So then I've got to replace that habit with something else. I've got to build something else into that to take away maybe the ice cream, or maybe it's that instead of going to the TV and my ice cream, I go to my Bible and sit down with my Bible and I give that insecurity or bad day or whatever to the Lord versus giving it to being numb with food.
Yeah. So, I like that a lot, and having balance, and talking about having God in His place, and then food is good. God gave us food to be good, and Jesus celebrated over meals a lot, and He ate with us.
It was a lot of bread.
It was a lot of bread. There was wine in it.
He's the bread of life.
Yeah, He's the bread of life.
Yeah.
But it's like, we had talked about that scripture. My mom has this on her fridge. It was, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Like, God gave us this stuff to eat and drink, but it's for good. Like, it's not for, to take away a pain or, something like that. He gave it for us for good purposes. And it can be, for fellowship, or it could be really good fuel and everything in between. So, I don't know. What do you think?
I just love listening to what both of you guys are saying. But yeah, when I was preparing for this, a big theme that was coming up a lot was the balance that you find in the Bible of you want to be disciplined in your lifestyle and your body is a sacrifice to God. And make sure you're doing the right things here. But also God gave us so much to enjoy and gave us things to do with enjoyment, and so finding that balance, and I think that's so true with everything in life, and your diet here and your working out and how you present yourself to God, it's about having that balance of being disciplined but also finding enjoyment in it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what are your goals? What are your goals? Is my goal is to be the best disciple of Christ that I can be, and if food is going to get in the way of that, I got to change something, in my life or in my, habits or whatever. If food is getting in the way of my relationship with the Lord, something needs to change about that. And if I'm constantly thinking about food, if I'm constantly, I ate a donut, I better go, I gotta go work out, I actually ate a donut. If I'm constantly focused on that, and I'm not I'm not focused on, what the Lord's wanting me to do with that day, then I'm out of balance, just like you said, the balance.
Well, that kind of goes back to our first episode when we talked about knowing your why. Why are you doing these things? Why are you checking your nutrition and your diet or working out? And is it, like you said, to bring glory to God and be the best disciple I can be? Or is it for my own reward and my own gratification?
Yes.
And so what is your why behind that? And that often changes your perspective and your joy that you get out of it as well.
Yeah. And part of my testimony, when I was in coming out of high school, going into college, I slipped into I don't want to say slipped into, but I had an eating disorder, and it stemmed from a lot of things in my life being out of control, but I could control that. I can control the food, and then, that was putting food in the place of going to the Lord, for me. And, there was a lot of health things that, came to light through that were not good. And anyway, luckily the Lord, pulled me out of that. But it was, it's very eye-opening as far as getting things out of whack.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
All right. Well, bringing us back, let's move on to, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but just any other, like, should people track? How should they track? I brought this up because one of, the most famous CrossFitters out there, Matt Frazier, he believes in how does it make me feel? And that's just how he bases his diet off of that. And so if someone's reading that from one of the most famous CrossFitters, would you say that's a good method, a bad method, or indifferent? Like, what would your advice be there?
I don't know. I think for me, like, I like to have it in front of me and know, like, knowledge. I think knowledge is, it's what we all seek. And so just knowing what I'm putting in my body, how much my body needs, like, I need that. Now, if you don't need that, great. If you're 20 and you probably can go out and eat cheeseburger. I'm not discounting anything that Matt Fraser does. He's obviously a machine. But I think you have to look at circumstances, the people, like, kind of you surrounded yourself with.
Yeah. Well, let's remember he's married to a chef as well.
Yes,
so,
yeah. And all of our bodies are different. This is the thing, we have so much information coming at us now. When we turn on Instagram, and if you are looking for any kind of nutrition information, it's typically, and I don't mean this bad, it's typically, a lady standing there in her sports bra with her abs showing, saying, "This is what I eat in a day," and that's great for her, But if I ate the same things that she ate, it doesn't guarantee I'm going to look like that. We don't know what she's doing off screen,
right.
How many times a day she's working out, to get to, what she has. So I think that, we got to run our own race, and we got to stay in our own lane. And what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. And that's the cool piece about nutrition is that, it's figuring out what that is, and part of that job as coaches, figuring out what motivates you, figuring out what fuels you, those kind of things. So when I check in with you, I know kind of where I'm going with it, How was your day, How was last night? Kind of thing. So, that's just my opinion on that.
So, that's why we brought you on, is to get your opinion.
Yeah.
But you would say for someone who is maybe new to tracking nutrition or focusing on their nutrition, that tracking would be a good idea, at least in the beginning, to assess where you are.
And you should have, I'm not saying it has to be me, you should have some other eyes on it. Like, I think, you should have someone helping you with that at the beginning, and what I think people have to keep in mind is tracking is not forever. Like, 6 months, if you dedicate yourself to tracking your food for 6 months, you're gonna know.
Yes.
You're gonna be able to know this is about 4 ounces of protein, this is, what's in here. You're gonna know what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse. So, what you should take out of your diet, what you should put into your diet. But I think having extra eyes on that is big. You should definitely do that.
Well, I know for myself, when I started tracking, like you said, I didn't do it forever, but now I can tell how my body feels, and I'll be like, I know I'm not getting the nutrition that I need. And so I'll go back and I'll track for like 2 weeks.
Right.
And most of the time when I do that, I'm like,
this is
way under where I should be.
Yeah.
And it just is almost like a restart. But if I didn't do it in the beginning to know where I should be, then it would be really hard for me to gauge what part of the puzzle is missing.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's different ways. I mean, you can do macros. You can even, you can just use like the palm of your hand. Like, you're going out to eat with friends, you're not going to take your food to go with you. I mean, you might.
You might.
Pull it out of your purse. And no
Jess
judgment.
probably does.
Go ahead.
I have 3 crazy children. You think I'm doing that? I barely get to eat.
That's why you actually have your diaper bag.
You have your own, meal plan.
Golly.
But you can use the palm of your hand to figure out how much protein or, your thumb for fat. Like, there's ways to do it and still be able to enjoy life.
Wish my hands were bigger.
Oh, look at mine.
I'm a friend.
Yeah. Is that a heat thing? Yeah. And I also love, and I read this earlier, but, CrossFit says that by combining the potent training stimulus of constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity with a sound diet of whole, unprocessed foods eaten in proper amounts, the results are nothing short of life-changing. So CrossFit methodology tells us, whole foods, unprocessed foods, no sugar, trying to move ourselves away from, the processed world that we live in, that's how you're gonna get the best results. So you've already taken the first step to walk into the gym. So why not take that extra step to help, help you get a little further on that continuum over to that, fitness side. So
I love it.
Absolutely. And I don't think, like, what I get from what you've told me is it doesn't have to be like a scary thing
no.
or something that I have to put off or dread, or like, I think it's something that you can fit to you. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Like, if you have somebody to help you kind of socially get started, I think it's very realistic for anybody.
Yeah, or be embarrassed by. You should not
No.
even be embarrassed by, getting help and saying, the key is that vulnerability and being willing to be honest with yourself. One, for a food journal, we can all fudge that,
Yeah.
So I was just not gonna write down those 2 things, but just, getting to the spot where you're like, hey, I'm gonna be vulnerable, I'm gonna be honest with myself, because this is important to me, for my health and for all people that depend on me to be healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. I like the way that you're presenting it too. It feels a lot more about focusing on the good stuff that you're putting in the body rather than cutting out all the bad things and focusing on all of the what you can't have.
Yeah, and I just heard somebody say that, talking about anytime you restrict, like if you are doing a diet or whatever, I don't like that word, but and they say you cannot have, then you should walk away. Anytime you're restricted, then you should. Because it's going to make you want it more.
Yeah.
No carbs. Well, you got to have carbs. Your brain has to have carbs.
Yeah.
And there's other diets. We have people in the gym that are vegetarians or vegans or whatever. There are ways to, be successful in those type of lifestyles if that's important to you. So.
Love it. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Love it.
Anything else you want to ask before we transition over into programming?
No, I think she covered it. Thanks, Shelly. That was super insightful.
Yeah.
All right, programming. We do have a deload week this week, which means the percentages are going to be lower, and that is on purpose. If you've been training week in, week out over the last 3 weeks or so, then you need to make sure you stick with the percentages that we have for the strength this week. If you've missed the last 2 weeks, probably not as important that you deload this week. But the deload is for people who have been consistently here, and your body, your central nervous system needs a little bit of a break from just constantly high percentage strength numbers, so you can recover and then go even heavier the next cycle.
Yeah. Can you emphasize that just a little bit more for the people in the back of that you can go heavier and should go heavier if you take a week of not going heavy?
Yeah. You can
This is part of a system that you should follow.
Yeah, it's part of a
not
bigger,
just for fun.
Yeah, it's a small puzzle piece within a much bigger puzzle. And so that's to give your body a chance to move on. And then we're going to have a little bit of what's called a bridge cycle after this, which will be some more kind of cardio type stuff, less really high weightlifting numbers. We've had a lot of maxes the last 3 weeks, so that's also intentional. So there's a lot of intention in the programming, and like I said, if you've been here, try to stick to those numbers the best you can. So yeah.
All right, next question. We have not much shorter, but a little bit of a shorter workout coming up. And talking about, I want to ask you the purpose of that and why that again fits the puzzle piece that it fits into, and why it's important to do that properly with the right stimulus, and why a short workout is just as beneficial as a long workout.
Yeah, sure. And so in CrossFit, we have short, kind of medium and long workouts. Typically the medium ones, we do a lot of those, which are 12 to 20 minutes. Anything over 20 minutes is considered long. So the short ones are typically some of your benchmarks, like Fran or Grace or something, or sometimes we'll just program something short in here, or maybe something with built-in rest or it's little sprints. They're going to improve your fitness just as much as the other things if they're done correctly. So it's our job as a coach to teach you what that stimulus is coming into it, because if we're taking this short workout and have the same pace as an endurance workout, then you're probably not going to get a whole lot out of it, and you're going to walk away and be like, I didn't get my money's worth today. But I think it's
whose accent was that?
Shelly's.
I say that all the time.
But I think there's a mindset to where if I don't sweat for 20 minutes, I didn't burn enough calories today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
where really there's some science behind like the intensity of the workout. And it's relative intensity. So we still want to move well, have good mechanics. But if you reach an intensity with that good mechanics where it's really uncomfortable, like you're getting new results, I think. And you will see different progress and probably help you overcome some plateaus versus just like steady pace training all the time. Like your body needs, it uses different energy pathways when you work out in different ways. Like just like running a 5K does something different than a 1 rep max back squat. You know, we need to work all these different energy systems to kind of come together to produce the fittest, you know, we can be. So I think there is purpose in that. You're going to have plenty to do all week. But in that, when you see those short workouts, don't skip them unless it's your rest day. That's fine. But don't like purposely.
We love rest days.
Yeah.
Cherry pick.
Don't
Some of
purposely
us
cherry
do.
pick. Yeah. Don't purposely cherry pick just the short ones. Same thing with the long ones too. Don't purposely, you know, pick out the long ones. But if they're done correctly with the right intensity, you will see good results from those, I think. So.
Okay. Let's talk about the workout then. What is this workout and what should the stimulus be?
All right, so right now, this can always change, but we've got a 21-15-9, which is 4 time. So you're going to do 21 reps of an alternating dumbbell snatch. This should not be a super heavy weight for this one. We're going to do box jump overs. So just getting over the box quickly. We can also step over for those if you're not jumping. Ab mat sit-ups, which should go pretty fast. And then it'll probably be some kind of cardio after like a run or ski or row. It depends on the weather. We are at the end of December, so a lot of that stuff is going to be weather dependent. But the stimulus is the same as you've got your big sets on everything, and then it gets smaller in that medium set, and then a really short set of each movement at the end that we should be able to do pretty much unbroken, I would say, especially with the dumbbell.
I would say all of this should be unbroken. For the stimulus of this workout, because we're looking at a 12-minute time cap, is that right?
Yeah, 12 minute at the most.
So for the stimulus of this workout, making sure that you are moving at that really quick pace, you should choose a weight and a movement that you can go unbroken on the 21, 15, and 9 for all the movements. Yeah.
And I would say, like, once you get to that last round of 9, you're like questioning life a little bit. Like, like some life choices, maybe what you ate the day before.
Yeah.
But no, like.
But I think that's actually good advice, because I know, and I've been guilty of this myself, but I've heard some athletes when they look at that and you're like, well, it's only 29, I should try to do a heavier weight, where this actually isn't the workout to do that.
No.
This is a workout where you should be going either a moderate or lighter weight for you so that you can go unbroken. So even though it's a shorter amount of reps and you might be tempted to do that heavier weight that you could do, that's not the stimulus you're trying to get today. We're not trying to do heavy today. We're trying to do a really light, fast workout where you're pushing that red button, like you said, where you're questioning your life a little bit.
Like, why am I here? But
if you do that, then you are getting your money's worth.
Yes.
As you would, or Shelly would say.
Get your money's worth.
I love it.
So that's, you will see, you know, some short workouts here and there in the programming, and then, you know, don't discount them. There's a lot of value in them. So
if you do them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, final question of the day. We want to make sure that we get some nutrition incorporated in with our programming section. So Shelly, is there any suggestions or changes that an athlete should make in programming if, say, there was, I know this is a deload week, but like let's say there was a 1 rep max, or we have a like higher cardio day? Would you suggest changes in your diet, or not really at all, or what would your thoughts on that be?
I think it just depends. Like some of those high cardio days, like the WNCEY days, you might want to up your carbs a little bit the day before, just so you don't, you know, tank out, 20 minutes into it, because you still got another 20 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So, kind of preparing for that's no different. I mean, you want to feel like if you really go out for a long run, you, after that sort of 45-minute to hour mark, you would want to fuel yourself, with carbs, and you want to fuel yourself before you hit the wall, right? Like, once you hit it, it's kind of hard to quickly get it back together. You might would up your carbs, a little bit. And I'm not saying to eat a whole pizza the night before to up your carbs, but another serving of broccoli, maybe add a little rice to, like something like that, still in that good quality of food. You know,
Extra
not so that
broccoli.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yum.
You got 'em now, Shelly.
Yeah. Or just there's scuba carbs, and if you drink, if you're a drinkable carb person or whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
But and then like if it was like your rest day, the same thing. You might would back off your carbs just a little bit, just to be able to, since you didn't sort of have that high intensity piece into it, you could just adjust your carb. But your protein, I would never mess with.
Okay.
I'd always keep your protein
So
the same. But you can kind of let your carbs kind of ebb and flow as.
to clarify though, you're not saying to eat less on your rest day though,
No.
right?
No,
Just wanna
not
make
eat
sure.
less, but you just
Again, say it louder for the people in the back.
Yeah. Don't starve yourself
Yeah.
that day because
Yeah.
you didn't work out.
Yeah.
But just maybe back off your helping of your vegetables, or something. Maybe not have that serving of rice. Just whatever would be like 100, 200 maybe. Kind of on your carbs. I would say something like that. But then again, you want to make sure that you write down, like, okay, this is what I did. This is how I felt. So that you can track it and know. And maybe that's not what works for you. Maybe keeping it the same throughout. Not backing off a couple hundred calories or a couple hundred on your carbs. Maybe does that make a difference for you? Maybe it does. That's where that whole food journaling part comes in. That's the cool part about nutrition. It's very individualized. What works for me is not going to work for you.
I love that.
So we want to make sure that all of our athletes here are getting what they want to get out of their workouts.
Yep. If anyone wants to zero in on their nutrition and look for that one-on-one coaching, Shelly's the girl for you, and feel free to reach out for that. Well, I think that was a really good session.
Yeah.
Any other questions from you?
No.
Anything else you want to add in here? Last chance?
Yeah.
All right. It's a wrap.
Here you go.